Hey guys, sorry I'm a little bit late. I was just finishing setting up here. I was actually out of town for a bit, just a couple days. Um, Earlier in the week, I had some other stuff going on, but then yesterday, or not yesterday, Thursday night, I went with my parents down to Orlando, which is just a couple hours away from me, to meet up with my friend Erin for the first time, who I met through covering this case. She's someone who I reached out to early on to ask questions about like what does a producer versus executive producer do, and just questions about like who normally has access to dailies and stuff like that, because she works in film. And she had written, I think this was the first time that she wrote a film. It's called The One, and I got to go see the premiere of it at a festival in Orlando this weekend. She's not watching right now. And she's not usually in chat anyways, but she's not watching right now because she's actually up for an award for her movie tonight. So hopefully that works out for them. I'll be looking for it, but it was a good movie. Looking forward to other people being able to see it when it's in theaters. It's like a holiday type thing, so like a Christmassy movie. So you're gonna probably see it, towards the end of the year, but it's good. Okay, so I have a few things I wanted to go through tonight. I could not get to this last night, needless to say. Like I just said, I was at the premiere, so it was a small event at a hotel down there, and so it wasn't like it wasn't like one of those big film festivals you normally see, because I don't even know what I would do with myself at one of those. But it was a nice event. There were lots of people there to see her movie, so that was cool. But I missed out on some of the stuff that came out, so I wanted to go through this with you guys tonight. And I'm not going to go through everything tonight, but I will go through some of it. Including the thing I put in the headline here, which is this message from Ange Giannetti at Sony, which talks about Blake Lively apparently wanting to delete some of the dailies, asking Sony to do that, which is kind of... well, we'll talk in a second about why that is an issue for me. Oh, hey, Ashley, what's up? Hi, I'm going to bed, but I want to say I love you. Is that sexual harassment? Yes, especially in Canada, I hear. Thank you very much. All right. Let me make sure my mic's working okay, guys, right? Okay. But before I pull this first document up for you, I wanted to read you my favorite notification that I got today, which is this comment here from an anonymous giver on my trial fundraiser, which, by the way, guys, thank you very much. I'm like less than $1,000 away from the goal at this point, which is amazing. Thank you so much. But I got this comment here that said, Blake is going to lawsuit you. When she wins, you are a woman-hating hater. And I'm not sure if this is a prank or if that's a real person. I genuinely can't tell, because who talks like that? But also, like, if it's a real person who like actually feels that way, why did you give me $10? There's not like a minimum you have to give to insult me, right? Like this kind of reads to me like somebody who needs to like put on knee pads and a helmet and elbow pads before they get on the computer. So like I don't really know what else to say to that. I just wanted to give that person a little shout. And also to remind you guys, I will be going out to New York, at least for the first few weeks of trial. I'm hoping it doesn't go too long. I want to be out there the whole time, but it just depends on how long it goes, because I can only get up to like, I think I got like 3 weeks of PTO I can use from work. So, but I appreciate everyone who's helped me out with that so far. It's been really nice to see. That's the only comment I've gotten that was like really weird. And if one of you did that, you should announce yourself, because it gave me a laugh. I'm sorry. It's like, you didn't have to pay me $10 for that. You could have given me $1. Why did you give me $10? Like that has to be a joke, right? Because otherwise it's like somebody who's like hopelessly fucking stupid. Like, I'm sorry, you're just hopelessly stupid at that point. My God. Somebody said it's probably Omar. It probably is Omar, Anyways, I also wanted to tell you guys I'm going to go to the hearing on Friday. So they changed the hearing. They said they wanted to have a hearing on Tuesday, but they moved it to Friday. So I am going to be there for that. So I'll be flying out for that, coming back, and then I'll be going back on the following weekend to stay there for the course of the trial. So yeah. Michelle Campbell, thank you for the $10. Finally caught you live, usually a next day watcher. So here's a small donation for New York. Go be a part of it. Haha. Thank you very much. You didn't want to insult me with that because apparently it only costs $10. That's what I've heard. Anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, I will be out there on Friday, and then I'll be back there for a while. Today is my dog's birthday, by the way, guys. He's not here right now. He's at my parents' house, but I just wanted to announce that to everyone so everyone else could be excited about it too. Now, I think I've made you guys wait long enough. So here's the message that I was talking about that I wanted to go over. So this was a conversation between Josh Greenstein and Ange Giannetti. It says, and this is from Ange to Josh. It says, call when you can, not urgent, but Blake asking us to destroy some of the dailies. Want to tell you what we will and won't do. Also going to ask Bridget to contact all vendors and ask them to delete all dailies and need them to proof. Okay. First time I've ever been asked to do this in a movie with no nudity, but okay. Now, dailies, the way it was described to me is like the takes that they want to keep from the day of shooting that they decide to keep that they can later use when they're editing the film. So like some takes when they're doing it on the set might not be viable. And so they might just like scrap it. But the dailies are their footage from the shoot for each day's shooting. So she's apparently asking Sony, Andrew's a rep for Sony, to delete dailies. And this is on September 3rd, 2024. So a few weeks before Blake Lively filed the Vanzan lawsuit. Now, if anyone in the comments can help me out with this, when was that text between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively where somebody from Stephanie Jones had reached out to Taylor to get Jan Abel's phone contents and like contact Blake Lively? So when was that initial contact where Stephanie Jones is trying to, in a roundabout way, link up with Blake Lively? I'm pretty sure it was before this. So that's one problem I have with that. It's like you have looked at the phone contents, decided how you want to frame your case, and now are trying to get the distributor to delete. And this is, obviously I can't prove this. This is a theory, right? Based on the evidence we have here. You're trying to get the distributor to delete some of the footage based on the story you want to frame. So my mind immediately went to the dance scene footage, of course, and then that birthing scene where she describes herself as being forced to be like naked, right? But actually she had black briefs on or underwear. So in some of that footage, you can see the black briefs. So I'm wondering if she was worried about that being seen in the dailies. That was where my mind went initially. I was like, well, she probably wants to get rid of some of that footage that can show like maybe there's a little bit of a gray area here to her story. Maybe she's not telling the entire truth. So that's just my thought based on what we're seeing right here. My second thought was, I went to that hearing in late January on the motion for summary judgment and the motion for judgment on the pleadings. And they talked a little bit there about the spoliation sanctions motion. And here, or there, I think it's there, Blake Lively was arguing that the Wayfarer parties were supposed to preserve documents or materials possibly related to this lawsuit that they might bring as early as November 2023, which was a year before the lawsuit was filed. So they're saying that the Wayfarer parties deleted evidence and they want them sanctioned because they didn't keep materials from way before the lawsuit was filed, right? And I don't agree with the way they described it and how that's supposed to be a preservation notice. But a preservation notice is basically saying, like, we might take legal action. You need to preserve all documents that are related to this potential grievance. So you can't like delete text messages once you get a preservation notice. You're responsible for keeping those text messages, which is what Blake Lively's trying to say they did. She's trying to say they deleted messages after getting a preservation notice. Now, the actual preservation notice, in my opinion, is, around the time of the CRD complaint. It's not that 17-point list, whatever it was, they were trying to pass as the preservation notice. But if they did consider, which they didn't, as you can see in Mike Gottlieb's document, they did not consider that to be the preservation notice because he said the opposite of that. But if they did consider November 2023 to be the time of the preservation notice, my understanding is that that goes both ways. So both parties are meant to preserve evidence related to the potential claims. And, any lawyers, paralegals, whoever in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But my understanding is you cannot then, even as the potential plaintiff, delete evidence related to the claims you might be bringing if you give a preservation notice to the other party. So why then is Blake Lively, let's see, that was November 2023, so this is 10 months later with the alleged preservation notice in place, trying to get the distributor to delete footage related to her potentially forthcoming lawsuit. And then, of course, we know a few weeks later, the Vanzan lawsuit was filed. So, I don't know. There's a lot going on there that makes this look pretty bad, if you ask me. Maybe there's another angle to it, but I'm seeing even Ange here is saying, I've never been asked to do this in a movie with no nudity. She's saying, I'm going to tell you, to Josh, I'm going to tell you what we will and won't do. So that's weird. There's a lot with these guys that are they're like, we don't want to put this in writing. And I'm like, you guys knew Blake was going to try to sue over this. That's not, it's not a great look if you ask me, but anyways, there was one more angle I wanted to look at here. Actually two. The first one is, and I'm going to pull this up. It's from Stacy Lee 26 on this subreddit. She put together some really easy to follow stuff here today and yesterday. And the reason I wanted to show her post is because she put this together where the deposition clip is right above this text message we just read. And this is Blake's deposition. So she said, the lawyer is asking Blake, you never asked or had anybody on your behalf ask anyone from Sony to destroy the dailies. Is that correct? Blake says, no, I never asked anyone to destroy dailies. No. Okay. The attorney asks, what about, did you ask anyone on your behalf to contact Sony to destroy the dailies? Blake says, to destroy the dailies? No. Okay. And of course, underneath, she's put the text that we just read. And then Stacey points out, after saying under oath she never did this, we have real-time text from Sony employees discussing that she wanted dailies removed. And it's not like this was happening during filming, right? This is in September 2024, a few weeks before Vanzan was filed. This was well after filming, well after the premiere. So, but I wanted to point that out because that's not the first time she's been kind of deer in headlights as far as deposition testimony goes. Remember that Colleen Hoover seemingly accidentally told on Blake during her deposition when she said that Blake asked her to unfollow Justin. And from what I recall, from the bit of Blake's testimony that we can see, because Blake didn't want people to see her full deposition. Fine. Okay. From what I remember, she did not want to admit to that she had orchestrated people unfollowing Justin. Because, Jenny Slate said that she asked her, I think, assistant to unfollow Justin for her. So it seems like Jenny Slate, came to that on her own. Fine, whatever. But if Blake was asking Colleen Hoover, the author of the book and the kind of headliner for the fans of the book who are going to make up a huge fan base of this movie, if she's asking Colleen Hoover to do that, that's making an intentional statement. And Colleen Hoover kind of told on Blake. And now Blake's in her deposition saying, I didn't ask anyone to delete this. And Ange Giannetti is saying that she did. So we now have more than one major issue that she is contradicting herself in, or not contradicting herself per se, actually. She's contradicting someone else's testimony in. So that's a little bad, if you ask me. All right. Give me 1 second here. I have a couple things I wanted to go over tonight, so I'm going to pull up the next one. Okay, there was one more thing I wanted to pull up kind of tangentially related to that. And this is to do with Josh Greenstein, the other participant in that thread with Ange Giannetti that we were just reading. And this is from his deposition. Okay. And I remember that his text messages like the thread with him in it that was produced to Wayfarer, he had apparently deleted text messages. So that's sketchy looking, right? But they're going to say a little bit about that here. Okay. Ms. Gavernsky says, I just want to object to this document, and it's the text messages that are missing, the document with the missing messages, where you can tell there are deleted messages because it's a one-sided conversation. So Ms. Gavernsky, who works for Ms. Lively, I believe, says, it only has one person's communication. We object under the rules of evidence that the use of these one-sided communications is incomplete and prejudicial and lack authenticity. Ellen Garofalo, of course, fuck you sent from my iPhone is how I would describe Ellen Garofalo in a few words. That's not an insult. I love that. We have no speaking objections. So objection or objection to form would be consistent with the rules of sufficient for these purposes. Also, this is how this document was produced to us. We had no control over it. And we do certainly have questions of Sony as to where certain responses and other documents are. We will deal with that issue when I'm not eating up my time during the deposition. So, the thing with Sony is you could see that Josh Greenstein was the person getting the pressure from Ryan Reynolds, and the person kind of kissing ass a little bit, where you would see like the other Sony reps were saying she's a terrorist, and what do we do with, we have to like tiptoe around her to try to keep the peace and like stop this from blowing up colossally. So it's interesting that Josh Greenstein, the one who was getting the most pressure from Ryan Reynolds and wanting to stay on his good side, maybe doing a little bit of ass kissing, even if you ask me, it's possible, right? He was the one that deleted text messages. So just saying. Somebody says Garofalo is the real Terminator. I have no objection to that. Ellen is a smart lady. She's sharp. I really enjoy reading her writing, and I think that I think she's a really good attorney. So, and I know Cassidy's a fan. I see Cassidy in the chat there. Hey, what's up? All right, we can read a little more of this, even though it's not going to give us too much insight. But there's a few more pages of this. So Ellen is questioning Josh about text messages between him and Sanford Panitch. Remember, Sanford is one of the ones that called Blake Lively a terrorist. Josh says to Sanford, no, you're wrong. It's working on her cut or she walks. Right. Ellen says, does that refresh your recollection as to whether or not she was threatening Sony about walking away from the promotion if she didn't get her cut? And Josh is like, really trying not to go there. It seems like Josh really doesn't want to say that. And I understand why Josh doesn't really want to say that, you know? Like, there's a lot of pressure on him, probably from a lot of people, right? But at the same time, we're at this point in this case, you kind of got to give it up, buddy. Like, just answer the questions. Josh here says, I don't recall if that she was threatening. Really? By reading this, I must have been worried about her walking if it didn't happen. And I think what I was most upset about, because I do actually remember this a little bit, this email text exchange. I mean, you'd remember it better if you hadn't deleted anything, but you know, there's that. Is that Sanford was MIA for pretty much the whole thing, and then came in at the fucking last minute and started getting involved. And I was like, you know, where the fuck were you? That's the tone. So Josh is and I can't tell you what Josh sounded like when he was saying this stuff, but Josh is not holding back on his language during this deposition, which I actually think, if you ask me, makes it a little more interesting. But all right. I don't know if there's any more on this that we really need to read, but we'll go through it anyways. Why not? Because it's short, so we obviously don't have much of the deposition in this file. So, so Ellen's asking about a message between him and Ange. Okay. Just learned Wayfarer told her reps yes to cutting room extension, but asked that we sign her deal. Do you know what Miss Giannetti was referring to there? Okay. As read, but asking she sign her deal. Okay, she signed her deal, right? So she needs to sign her fucking contract, which she never did, which bit her in the butt, apparently. They're asking that she sign her contract, which they've been trying to get her to do for over a year. As you look at this, do you know who you were communicating with? He says, I don't. Okay, whatever. Go to the page marked, and then she marks the page there. And then Josh asked, is Justin's name in body of trailer? I hope not. What was that about? Josh says, I believe that Blake didn't want his name by her name. She didn't want his name in the trailer, correct? He says, correct. And you and Sony gave into that demand, correct? He says, we agreed to it. And that's fucked, by the way. It was his fucking movie. And Mr. Baldoni's name was not included in the trailer, correct? Josh says, I don't recall, but there's a good chance. And I think there are multiple versions of the trailer, so I don't know which one they're talking about here, so I'm not positive. Right? Okay. Okay. I don't know if there's much more to this document that we need to read tonight. I have a couple more things I want to get to. Oh, right. So they were trying to, because Blake's cut wasn't testing as well as Justin's, they were trying to get her to add some of Justin's cut back in. So this is a message from Ange Giannetti to Josh Greenstein saying, only way forward, given no time, is we must insist on a few key scenes from Justin's cut and her version. Rooftop party, pajama, platonic, sleepover, frittata scene, parking lot, after guys fight in restaurant, then some notes on her cut. And if you haven't seen the movie, that's probably a bunch of gibberish to you. I have seen it. Listen, it's not my favorite movie. Well, I'll give you that. But there's just a lot of that. That was just kind of a mess, if you ask me, as far as like the rooftop scene, that I was just kind of like, I feel like this was written by like a very corny man, is like how I read it. And I was like, a very corny dude wrote this scene. And then it turns out it actually wasn't that far off from what Colleen Hoover wrote in the book, which is, sorry ladies, if that's your style of writing, if you're a big Colleen Hoover fan, I can't commiserate with you on this. Because watching that scene, I was just like, oh, if a stranger said that shit to me? Also, if you guys have watched the movie, you know she's like sitting on the ledge of a stranger's building in the beginning of this movie. I'm like, if a stranger starts, okay, first thing that he does when he comes out there is he's like slamming chairs around and being like, oh, damn it, or whatever. If a stranger's having an aggressive episode with an inanimate object in front of me, I'm sitting on the edge of a ledge on the big roof. Like, if a stranger approaches me after showing that level of aggression, my first instinct is not going to be to like talk to him about my silly name, Lily Blossom Bloom. I'm going to be like, stay the fuck away from me, mister. All right? I don't care what your job is or why you were hitting that chair. I need you to not push me off this ledge right now. So it's not going to be like, hee, what's your middle name? You know what I mean? Like, what? There's just a lot wrong with that scene. So, anyways, they wanted to put some of his cuts into hers to make it, flow better, I guess. And then Ellen asks, you understood Miss Giannetti felt it was imperative to have these scenes from Justin, and then it cuts off there, doesn't it? Yep. I hate when they cut that. I just want to read the whole deposition, but I can't. They say here that and I think this might be Blake Lively's attorneys now talking. They say that Blake had a pre-existing launch of a hair care product set for August 2024. Josh says no. They say, do you understand Miss Lively's August 2024 date for the launch of her hair care product was contractually required? He says, no, I didn't know anything about that. So two problems I have with that, with the implication there, is that it just, happened to coincide, is she pushed for the launch of It Ends With Us to be moved to August to coincide, seemingly, it's my opinion, to coincide with the launch of her products and Deadpool and Wolverine, which I don't remember which month that came out in, but I remember it wasn't too far apart. She pushed to move it to August. She wanted the premiere in August. And so the marketing for the film, of course, was going to be around the same time of the marketing of her products. So I don't really see that as a win for them, but, whatever. He says, no, didn't know anything about it. Opposing counsel asked you a few times about Miss Lively's marketing efforts. Okay. What were Miss Lively's marketing efforts as opposed to Sony's? And then Josh, I keep forgetting his name. That's my brother's name. I should remember that. They were one and the same. And opposing counsel also asked you quite a bit about marketing costs. You remember that? He says, uh-huh. Did the success of the film more than make up for the marketing costs? He says, yes. Apparently he laughed because the lawyer says, why do you snicker a bit? He says, because this movie did more business than anyone in the entire world ever thought it would do. And the thing is, like, this would have been such a win for everyone involved if they had just not blown this shit out of proportion. It's ridiculous. Because it really was very successful from the way it sounds. So I love Bocce's face when she talks about Josh. Okay. Let's see. I think, yeah, this is the end of that one. What else do I have? Oh, there was this whole thing with the Publicists that I want to get into. There were a couple things with the Publicists, actually. There was, I don't know if you guys saw a New York Times article, because the New York Times is working overtime to try to double down on their original story. There was a New York Times article about how TAG, Melissa Nathan's crisis PR agency, had been in talks with RFK Jr. And my thought when I saw that was, you know, breaking news, politician uses PR services. I was like, excuse me? I would be more shocked if RFK Jr. wasn't in talks with a crisis PR agency, right? Before he was brought on board with the administration. So that was kind of, I was like, wow, this is the dullest, most ridiculous like piece of journalism I've ever read. But you know, anything to back up their original story. Like I said, like anything, no matter how small. So, and he wasn't the only one mentioned in the article, but he was the headliner, you know, because they were trying to tie that together, I guess. And I was like, can we please stop trying to make this case political? It's just getting a little stupid. Anyways, so let me read this one real quick before we get into the next. Jackie Swan, thank you for the 10 pounds. Put this toward your NYC trip. Good luck, hon. Thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate that. All right. Moving on. This is talking about Stephanie Jones a lot. Apparently, the Wayfarer parties were considering sending Stephanie Jones, their publicist, a cease and desist because Stephanie, as we know, was refusing to listen to the wishes of the client, which has been a whole thing on its own in the Jones versus Abel case, because Wayfarer is also a defendant there where they were trying to bring counterclaims. And we've talked a little bit about how the judge ruled there, but let's just go through these text messages. Ricardo says, hi, Miss Lauren. Hi, Lovely's just popping in. Thank you, Ricardo. I appreciate that. All right. So this is Melissa Nathan talking to Jen Abel. Let's see. Oh, they're talking about some of the snarky stuff they were seeing on like Instagram and TikTok and all that. And it's funny for me because I wasn't paying attention to like the TikTok drama around the premiere of this film. I wasn't paying attention to that conflict. Like I wasn't really inclined to talk about any of this stuff or pay too much attention to it until she blasted all this out in the New York Times and filed a lawsuit. So now reliving that through this text messages, like these text messages in retrospect is kind of funny. So Melissa Nathan is saying, I'm flagging this. It's turning into a trend. One of them said, grab your Aquanet and Coca-Cola. We're going to see a group of flirty girl in steel magnolias. Another was, want a spot to watch a heartwarming tale and get married? Watch 12 Years a Slave. Oh my. Okay. Anyways, they're like freaking out. They're like, what is happening here? And then unfortunately, Jamila is again catching strays in these text messages, having her name brought into this. Jen Abel says, and this is, you know, Blake Lively brings these text messages in. So, of course, unfortunately, some people are going to catch strays, just like they did in the Wayfarer documents. You know, when these things get unsealed, there are celebrities who have been mentioned who, on both sides, unfortunately get revealed, just like RFK Jr., I guess. Jamila texted me yesterday and flagged something similar and said, it's all over for her. The minute it turns into parody, you know the internet hates you. All Sorry, guys. Melissa says, BL trending again for all the wrong reasons. Justin is texting me on the side. He needs to know how bad it is. Crisis PR. I'm like, everyone has a fucking crisis. She has a crisis PR, and I sent him this. You want to see a headline, and then there's this. Oh, that's the Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Sloan thing. I don't think we need to pull that up right this second. But Melissa says people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and it's like talking about how Leslie was Harvey Weinstein's publicist there, and Harvey Weinstein, of course, a known friendly towards Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So that's an association that she didn't denounce with enthusiasm, despite the fact that she's now trying to ruin a man for saying someone had sexy pants in a movie that was about sex and relationships. Maybe I'm just weird for thinking that's bizarre, but I think I'm not alone. All right. Melissa says, even though I think it's SJ. So they were thinking that Stephanie Jones was planting stuff, right? And she was not supposed to be doing that. Melissa says, he wants to voice note of me to explain everything I can't. I hate voice notes. I don't know what to say. Guys, I send a long-ass voice note. I send some long voice notes. Melissa Nathan would not want to text me. All right. Jen says, I think it is 2 voice notes saying what, and then there's a screenshot here we can't see now, so I don't know what it is. Steph texted me last night for the first time since Monday, grilling me about who reached out about the articles about you. So I guess they're talking about the THR, Hollywood Reporter articles about Melissa Nathan, I assume. And then Jen says, I think she placed it too. Melissa says, I'm sorry, this is funny. I know I should not laugh. And it must be about the screenshot we can't see. Yes, I told him last night you spoke to Leslie for a while. Melissa says, I'm going to recommend that you, me, and him talk when he lands. Right, okay. I don't know what they're talking about here, but it says, I love you, fuck her, dead, ha 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 ha. Okay, cool. Oh, they're talking about Stephanie. Okay. Well, I could have guessed that. Anyways, who else knew this? Jen says, that's why I want to ask Jamey. Matthew obsessed, but wouldn't be able. Not at all. Alleged cult. Right, so I guess they're talking about that. He doesn't know how to place stuff like this. He's got to know she's just placing. I guess placing is just like placing stories in these publications. Okay. I wish I could see the screenshot so I knew what was going on there. Oh my God, Jamey, please. And I guess they're still talking about Leslie. She's always like, I'm best friends with Harvey. Sorry, I'm so frustrated. I don't want to be rude either. Now the school moms are coming for me. Oh no. Okay. Let me see if I can. Jamey called me. I call him back. They're saying, fuck me, fuck us all. So I guess things are getting bad. I just had confirmation that Stephanie is placing stories. I was also shown a text. So I guess I got some sort of confirmation that Stephanie Jones was placing stories. And that would be, here's one story that she's bringing up is a TMZ article where it says Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni fat shamed Blake Lively, basically. Blake Lively felt Justin Baldoni fat shamed her, kissed too long during scene. Right. Okay. Did you speak to Leslie? Jamey wants me to also speak with her. Jen says, can we balance that fucking headline? So, because sometimes we see headlines change, right? After things are publicized, or like the top statement, the byline will change. And I guess it's because the publicists reach out. So I'm assuming. Let me know when you speak to Brody. I know I'm on this, but I really just help us piece the puzzle together. I don't know what to tell Justin because it's not Leslie. Okay. So this screenshot here, I think it's between Melissa and Justin, but I'm not positive. Steph Jones, Brody, something it for us. He's very close with her. And then Justin, I think this is Justin, says, wait, she sent what story? Or maybe it's Melissa and another publicist. I'm not sure. This is Melissa and somebody. Melissa is saying, Steph Jones, something, it's the screenshot is blocked. It for us. He's very close with her. Whoever's receiving this message says, wait, she sent what story? She's placing all these stories. I know it. I fucking know it. Yeah, I don't think this is Justin. She says, I looked through Us Weekly Web Legal and the writer asked Brody to review before publishing. For which story on me? Question marks. You. Oh my fucking God. She placed the story. She placed THR. That's it. So that's her talking to somebody, but I'm not positive who it is. Okay. Because she's saying here, I don't know what to tell Justin because it's not Leslie. Maybe that's Brody she's talking to? No, it's not Brody she's talking to because she's talking about Brody. I'm not positive. If anyone in chat knows. And then here's this article about Kirsty's video, Kirsty Flaw. And Melissa says, not us. So she's saying, we didn't do that. And then when you think back to the New York Times article and you think they included Kirsty's article in that, and they were trying to say it was part of the smear campaign. But the New York Times had all of these text messages. Remember that Megan Twohey, who wrote the article, said she had thousands and thousands of pages of text messages, meaning Megan Twohey had time to review all of that. She was aware of these text messages, including these about Kirsty Flaws, where Melissa Nathan is saying, not us. And Megan Twohey in the New York Times chose not to share this side of the story with the public intentionally. They had all the information and chose not to share it. That's on them. They did that on purpose. They weren't not given half of the story. They were given the whole story, every bit of text that we're looking at right now. That came from Jen Abel's phone. Hey, Rit, what's up? 1 sec, guys. I need some water. But yeah, so Megan Twohey had access to all these messages long before we did now, right? So it's been almost a year and a half. It has been a year and a half since that New York Times article came out. And they never bothered to share this side of the story with us. And even now, the New York Times is only telling the Jad Wallace had, or not Jad Wallace even, I think it was Melissa Nathan, potentially had RFK Jr. as a client. Like, shocking. Breaking news. American politician hires crisis PR agency. More at 11. Like, what the fuck? But anyways, this whole thing, like, and I think if you were here early on and you heard the things that I would say early on when I was reading through these documents, you would agree that the way that I view the media and attorney's conduct, what you can do in court and all that has changed so much. I was like very naive, I think, where I was like, no, people wouldn't do that because they know they would get in trouble. Like it was almost like I was like a hall monitor or something. It's like, no, people wouldn't do that because then they would get in trouble. No, people are fucked. All right. So that's where we're at now, to where I'm just like angry all the time. When I see messages like this, I'm just like pissed off. You know, I'm like, you honestly, like, as one of the faces of the Me Too movement, Megan Twohey, or the revived Me Too movement, right? Because she's obviously not the original person who founded the movement and got it off the ground, but one of the original spokespeople, I guess, for the revival of the Me Too movement, Megan Twohey, intentionally left this information out in favor of telling a salacious story, knowing that this stuff might come out to the public and undercut everything that she said, knowing that that might then damage female victims who choose to come forward, who were initially empowered by what she wrote. And I think that's fucked up. So, you know, I'll get off my soapbox. But anyways. So we haven't even gotten to the part of this text thread that I wanted to read. But it's not a long text thread, so no worries. All right, let's see. They're talking about Matthew. I don't know who that is. Okay, we can skip this part. They're just looking at different threads. TMZ was contacting them here saying, I'm a reporter at TMZ. Well, buddy, you want to stop there and rethink your life choices. But and I'm reaching out to get a statement regarding some... It looks like infuriation, but that's not what it says. Let me zoom in a little bit and see if I can tell. Regarding some information, maybe. We are being told there were at least 3 HR complaints filed against Justin Baldoni on set of It Ends With Us. So, interesting. I guess TMZ has also been talking to Dr. Leslie Dobson. I think Dr. Leslie Dobson is probably the staff psychiatrist for TMZ. Fuck. Psychologist, whatever. She's about as much of a psychologist as Harvey Levin is a lawyer these days. Let's put it that way. We wanted to see if the complaints were investigated and what the results were. Thank you, Charlie Neff. Okay. Gotcha. What on earth, they said. So I guess they were confused too. They're like, what the fuck? Nobody knows what they're talking about. Literally, when was this? 8/14? Yeah, I guess those fake HR complaints didn't circulate for until a while after that, but yeah. Okay. We're getting to the good part, don't worry. I'm going to skim down. Matt wants 200K. He will come work for you. I don't give a shit about your work arrangements, ladies. Get me to the good stuff. I think they're back to talking about Stephanie. Us all working together would just kill her. The sad thing is that we've all worked out how much we like each other, and if she was a good manager, she would recognize that putting people together instead of pulling them apart works way better. Yeah, that's Melissa talking about Stephanie. Melissa and Stephanie, there's no love lost there. I don't know what the original feud was, but I'm shocked that Stephanie Jones didn't just sue Melissa Nathan because of how much she hates Melissa Nathan. But that never worked out, I guess. All right. I'm going to skip over where they're talking about salaries and shit like that. Okay. Jamey should know that Sony is speaking to media on Blake's behalf. It would enrage him that they are supporting her and not Justin. And same with Justin's agent. Melissa Nathan says, I just got off the phone with him, but I hadn't told him because it just came through after I put the phone down. And then they got this article from Hollywood Reporter that came up. And Sony obviously was singing a different tune behind the scenes, but as we know from all the messages we've seen, Ryan Reynolds was drilling into Sony and the people from WME saying, you guys better do this, this, and this, or else, basically, we're going to blow up. So there was a lot of pressure there on Sony's end. I'm not surprised they had a spokesperson there to kind of like give a neutral statement, calm things down. But I didn't read that article, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to do it right now because I know anything that's in it is probably bullshit. So, all right. Oh, and then Melissa says here, this is fully Ryan Reynolds putting pressure. Yeah, that tracks. So I'm not supposed to know this, but yes, that's exactly what happened, says Jen. Okay. So somebody on background told her, I guess, that Ryan was putting pressure on Sony. I mean, that was the easiest puzzle to solve in the history of everything, but, you know, whatever. Okay. Melissa says here, I'm hysterical as I've reached the pinnacle of insanity. Sorry. And Jen says, what the fuck is happening? So these ladies are starting to lose it a little bit. That's how I feel at like 4:50 in the workday. So I get it. I don't know. But I feel like we handled that okay. They're like juggling a bunch of shit here. And then this is the part that we wanted to get to where it says, did they C&D Steph? So Wayfarer was thinking about sending a cease and desist to Stephanie Jones because Stephanie Jones would not stop apparently placing things on their behalf when they asked her not to, which is what this looks like. So like there could be other text messages that refute that narrative. I don't have them. Obviously, that would have to come out in discovery in the Jones case probably. But from what I gather on these text messages is that she was placing things that they found out about it. And this was a big problem for them. So they were about to send her a cease and desist, which I don't think they ever did. We probably would have heard about that if they had. Jen says not yet. So they did not send her a cease and desist yet. She looped in lawyers. So Stephanie Jones had lawyers looped in as she's insisting that she never called Daily Mail. Well, that's a lie. According to Stephanie Jones herself, she did call them, but she left a voicemail. She never, I guess, mutually communicated, right? So I don't know if that's what Stephanie said. If Stephanie told them that she definitely never called, but she apparently did call. She just didn't make direct contact. So, and then Jamey looped in their lawyers, and she's still insisting on being part of the comms plan. At that point, if I were Stephanie Jones, I would just check out. But I don't have a psychic, so maybe that's why. And saying how she can do so much better. Well, if you can do so much better, then let's ask Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson about that, shall we? So she looped her lawyers into Jamey, her client, is what Melissa's asking. Yeah. Talking about third-party advocates to go on deep background to flooding the market with good press. I'm just thinking, what the fuck is happening? Yeah. Right. Melissa says, you're up against a machine. The entire internet loves him and hates her. And we have been doing our best with people coming out of the woodwork. Yeah. Like, she's fucking mad. Oh, God. Let's chat tonight. Right. If we did a whole bunch of third-party advocates, that would look insane. So basically, if like they did what Stephanie Jones is proposing, they would look nutty. Right. The internet is flooded. We have our own third-party advocates, the entire internet. So like they don't have to do anything because they're already getting the whole internet on their side, basically. Yeah. Imagine looping your lawyers in with a client and then the client looping theirs in. Just think about that. And then still thinking you will work with this client. My God, dude. Anyways. Lauren is the most dehydrated podcaster. If I was dehydrated, I wouldn't be drinking any water, right? So that's just kind of counterintuitive. Anyways. I don't know what they're talking about here because I can't see the image files. It just says, when you watch these things and you see these women wasting their time and getting in a room and talking absolute fucking shit because shit is just mind-blowing. I have no idea what they're talking about there. So, but yeah. I have one more thing I wanted to look at. Hang on. And I found this excerpt actually on Reddit, so I will pull it up. I'll just pull up the post. And this is Blake's agent, Warren Zavala, talking about the dance scene and describing it in a way that obviously is not what happened based on the footage. He says, and this is his deposition, he says, one was Justin said that she looked hot, and she told him that he didn't have the right to say that she looked hot. Like, okay. And in my opinion on that is still the same. You have a right to raise that grievance if you're not comfortable with that, right? But you don't have a right to ask for millions of dollars for that after you raise your concerns about how you want to look hot, and now you're concerned that you don't look hot. I don't know. I just don't think that's sexual harassment. You know what I mean? Like, one time he's like, your outfit is sexy or hot or whatever. And you're like, I don't like that. And then he stops. Yeah, that's not millions of dollars of harassment. I think you need to get over yourself. Anyways, that's not exactly how it happened, but I'm just reading what he said in his deposition. She had told me that there was another actress on the film that felt uncomfortable. That was Jenny Slate with the hot pants, right? Because nobody's outfit should be commented on per them, which is fine. He corrected that behavior. There was this, I believe, simulated sex scene, and they were about to have some kind of romantic scene wherein he said something into her ear and bit the nape of her neck, which she felt like was outlandish. And he's just describing what she told him. I have never seen that except for in the specific scene in the movie where the scene called for the neck biting was a huge part of the scene. It was a part of depicting the abuse. And that was in the script. He said something like, you smell great. So Warren here seems to be conflating the dance scene with this scene depicting abuse. He said something like, you smell great, and then bit the nape of her neck. And we've all seen the dance scene 1,000 different ways, 1,000 different times. And I don't even know how you draw that conclusion. Like, if he bit the woman's neck, somebody would have seen it at one of the 12 angles that I was shown. You know what I mean? That's just not what happened. Okay. And then there was Jamey. Heath, during the birthing scene, had shown a video of a home birth of his child with his naked wife, and that made her feel uncomfortable as well. And this is something I was talking to somebody about the other day, where I was like, yeah, if you worked at a Starbucks, that would be weird. But if you're artists creating a birthing scene, there's some gray area there. And obviously the judge agreed on some of these points, right? That there was some gray area there. So like, I would have a lot of sympathy for her if she worked at freaking Walmart or like if she worked at my workplace, right? And our manager showed her out of the blue a home birth video, but that's not what was going on here. It was a bunch of creatives working together. Blake Lively herself brought in her own personal excerpts experience a lot of the time, where she would then be like horrendously offended if the people she was working with brought up their personal experiences, right? But she herself spoke of her own experiences. So it's just like there's a lot of gray area there. But that is just what her, I guess, agent was saying during that Justin bit her neck during the dance scene, saying she smelled great or whatever. And we've all seen that too, where it's like she apologized for getting something like whatever spray she had on, body spray on him. And he was like, it's okay. It smells good. Yeah. That wasn't sexual. So yeah. There's one more thing I'll go through tonight, and that'll be the last thing. Hang on. And this was something I wanted to do the other night, but this is one of her experts, Dr. Humphreys. Let me pull it up real quick. And then we have some of her deposition that I want to talk about, which is, again, not too long, so that should be okay. Give me 1 second here. So Dr. Humphreys, I'll read this paragraph right here to give some background on who she is. Ms. Lively retained Dr. Humphreys to analyze the impact, if any, to Ms. Lively's reputation from the retaliation campaign orchestrated by defendants to manipulate online discussion of Ms. Lively beginning in August 2024, as well as the reputational impact of retaliatory statements made by defendant's agent in December 2024 and January 2025. Okay. So that's who this is. And we're going to read a little bit of her deposition now, because I took some issue with some of what she was saying. I won't read the whole thing word for word. It's only like a 17-page excerpt as is. But they're, of course, talking about Brian Friedman's statements in this. And I thought what they had to say there was interesting. Let's see. The at-issue statements harmed Ms. Lively's reputation by introducing new negative associations and strengthening existing negative associations with her in the public sphere. Okay, and they're talking about Brian Friedman's statements. She doesn't list any specific ones. She just says, look at my analysis or whatever. Oh, no, here she kind of generally says that Ms. Lively is a liar who would lie in government proceedings or documents. Now, let's talk about that for a second. Ms. Lively is a liar that would lie in a government proceeding or document. Now, who said, and I'll give you guys one guess, who said in their deposition that they never asked anyone to delete the dailies? I think we can all pick up on that, right? But is that, if you see in writing that she did in fact ask people to delete the dailies, is that a lie? As far as I can tell, the truth is a complete defense to, calling this defamation or anything of the sort, right? Or a smear, rather, because when normal people hear smear campaign, they think lie. They think you made up something about somebody to tarnish their reputation. They're not thinking, oh my God, you showed everyone this horrible thing I did. Give me more millions to add onto my tubs of money. Like, that's just ridiculous. She also said she didn't get people to unfollow Justin on socials. Yes, correct. And then Colleen told on her. Oh, okay. I didn't ask them to delete the dailies. I told her to. That's okay. Well, I guess we're technically she was not, maybe technically she worded it that way, but I'll never know because she didn't want us to see more of her deposition than we've seen. So anyways, do you know if Mr. Friedman believed in the statement he made at the time that he made it? I mean, who wouldn't believe that? All right, now I think this might jump ahead here. Yeah, and I hate when these deposition pages cut off, but all right. She talks about impressions here. Impressions on social media. We don't need to read this whole thing to explain that to you. Most people probably understand. Impressions is like you're being exposed to a statement or a post or something like that. That's how many people have basically come across it in some way or another. So I'll skip that part. Okay. And then she's talking about specific posters here, and they start asking her questions. They're examples of audience response to, I guess, she's attributing these to Brian Friedman's statements, and I think there's probably a reason for that. But in the middle, a poster named Jerry, maybe it's Jari, I'm not sure, is having a conversation. I don't know how to characterize these posts, but there are some people up there, and this poster writes, she was proven to be let's see, Blake Lively is Amber Heard in the making. She was proven to be a pathological liar. Let's wait until all comes out. He is innocent until proven guilty. As of right now, Blake Lively has been proven to be a bully. Look at her past interviews. Okay. And this was a post on Twitter, I guess, where this person was saying that. And let's see. Do you know who that is? For do at the top of the post. Paper Crumbs. So they're talking about these two social media users in this thread. They ask if she ever spoke with those users. She said, no, I didn't. Did you ever reach out? No. And imagine like having a federal case where the person's asking for hundreds of millions of dollars and you're arguing over somebody named Paper Crumbs. Like, get a fucking life. These people, oh my God. Anyways, the expert is just doing her job. I understand that. I'm just saying generally Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds maybe need to move on. You know what I mean? Because like I think we all have a Paper Crumbs in our life who is going to say some shit about us online. Even random faceless accounts have people talk shit about them online, right? Everybody. And at some point you just got to be like, dude, I got to go to work. I got a job. We don't sue. Okay. That's just stupid. And then the attorney asks, what is defamatory about a poster saying, let's wait until it all comes out? He is innocent until proven guilty. Okay. The witness, of course, Miss Humphreys says, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't offer an opinion on defamation, right? And then they ask what her concern with the statement is. And she says, this example and the others are used to illustrate the reception of Mr. Friedman's statements by the public. Namely, do they believe them? Do they endorse his statement? The attorney asked, but looking at the statement, look at her past interviews. Isn't that indicative that this particular post is motivated not by what necessarily Mr. Brian Friedman said, but by Blake Lively's past action? Right. Ms. Humphreys says, I believe that statement refers to a prior belief that makes her receptive to the statement that she's a liar. So here's where I have a problem with that. Not only is there like a causation problem here, but there seems to be a pre-existing opinion, at least amongst these people in this thread that they're describing, that Blake Lively is a liar and that she's not a good person, right? That she's a bully or whatever. And I was talking to a reporter, actually called me yesterday, and I had a long conversation with her. The article is not going to come out until right around trial, so you guys won't see that for a while. But I talked to her yesterday, and she was asking me some questions about, opinions and how I came to have my own opinions and what I think about the kind of online sentiments that I've been seeing. And I look at like what's being described here, and I think the problem, the large problem that Blake Lively has is that they're trying to put words in people's mouths and assign the reasons for people's opinions, rather than just listening to what these people are saying and taking that into account and considering her audience and what the people want to see, what her audience wants to see. She's trying to find the culprit of why don't they agree with me and punish the culprit, right? And it's like, you're not even getting the right culprit, right? Because your past behavior is the culprit, not Mr. Friedman. And then also, when you nitpick people's social media posts like this and blast them in public documents and like try to blame other people for all of your troubles, even though you have like one of the most privileged lives imaginable, you're taking away agency from people who are just like using the freedom and the voice that they have, which is much, much smaller than Blake Lively's, right? Much smaller than her platform. They're just using their little Twitter account or whatever to speak their mind, using their free will to determine how they feel about her and what they want to say. And when you start attacking people for that, it's basically like saying, I'm better than you and I'm going to squash you like a bug. And not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to use it to punish the person that you're defending here. And that's not a good way to go about business. And then we also talked a little bit about why some of this stuff got so much attention. And my opinion is actually not so much that I understand that all of these Hollywood people, they got PR teams who can, on some level, probably a pretty large level, manipulate stuff to have more people see, certain types of content. But my opinion is actually that it is the conflict itself between the two sides of this lawsuit. Like the people who are diehard believe Blake Lively because, they really want to believe the accuser. Who feel very deeply tied to being in situations where they may or may not have been believed, or they fear for themselves based on their own experience, and they kind of project and assign that there, versus the people who are on Justin Baldoni's side of things, who have been, maybe bullied or othered or put in a situation where they were made to look like the weird wrong one, right? When they didn't necessarily do anything wrong. They didn't do what they're accused of, or they have, brothers, friends, cousins, husbands, fathers who have been in the same situations, to where everybody's very emotionally charged and very attached to these kinds of issues. And especially just like the center of it is sexual harassment in the workplace, despite, Blake Lively's attorney's new assertions that this is about digital violence, because digital violence Barbie is not a thing. But the center of it is sexual harassment in the workplace and sexual abuse and sexual trauma, which is something that deeply affects so many people, so many women in the workplace in this country. And if not you, then like I just said with the men who have been falsely accused, if it hasn't affected you, it might have affected your sister, right? Your mother, your aunt. And so there's just so much at stake for a lot of people who feel very strongly about either side of this lawsuit. And I think that kind of turned into its own animal, the way you see with a lot of celebrity things, to where this conflict drives engagement. This conflict feeds itself. And so that's why I believe a lot of this blew up the way that it did. Not just because of manipulation, not trying to write off that that's a thing, but I think that the conflict eats itself alive. Let's put it that way. And then just becomes like a giant blob consuming the internet. That's one way to put it. So. All right. Anyways. So I didn't love that. That they try to speak for people. And they put it there like, no, I've never contacted these users or reached out. But they try to speak for people. And they try to speak for why they have their opinions. And I think that that's not fair. I think it's not fair to take away agency from everyday people who have an opinion on the things they see online. I think if you want to use somebody's words against somebody, then you need to go directly to the source and at least ask them why they came up with that. I don't think that's fair to assign a certain meaning to somebody else's words without giving them a chance to say, no, this is why I came up with this conclusion. That's just my thought. And there's one more thing I want to point out here. And it had to do with a potential verdict. She's basically in advance blaming Justin Baldoni if she wins the lawsuit and people don't believe her, saying like people won't believe the verdict, which is the most insane thing. So let me see if I can search the word here. Yeah, here we go. Right. Okay, so they're talking about reputational damages, right? And so this expert is saying that Blake Lively would need, or would be owed a certain amount of money to account for a campaign she would need to correct her reputation. And they're saying, in this deposition, she's saying, a number of factors related to digital media and the way communications functions in the media system makes it not a foregone conclusion that the target audience will receive that message of the verdict. So if she gets a verdict, like they say, in her favor, this expert's opinion is that she will still be owed $14 to $26 million in reputational repair, because she thinks that the target audience may not believe that the verdict was correct, right? It's not a foregone conclusion that they will trust that message. And it's not at all a foregone conclusion that the verdict would repair the reputational harm. And here's my thought on that. If somebody sees that Blake Lively won this court case and they don't receive the verdict as she's innocent or she was in the right. Whose fault is that? Because as far as I can tell, there's one party in this lawsuit who has 40 million plus followers on one platform alone, Instagram, who has written in her Instagram stories and in a standalone post that the court, to convince people that the court's ruling 10 of her 13 claims were not going to move forward was somehow a win for her, that this huge loss for her was somehow a win for her, and then also her side trying to pass it off as her attorney, Michael Gottlieb, trying to say Brian Friedman, who largely won, like his side won this motion, right? Like they really did, because they gutted the shit out of her lawsuit, saying that they fundamentally misunderstood the law and that was a technicality. It's not what you think it means, folks. It doesn't mean that. So which side here is undermining a potential court ruling or a court result? And then to claim that you're owed $14 to $26 million in reputational damages to repair your reputation because people might not believe the verdict means what they think it means after you spent all this time undermining the court system and abusing it to violate other people's rights and privacy. Whose fault is that? Just food for thought. If you're actively undermining, the court's ruling and what it means to 40 million plus people, plus however the fuck many people follow Deadpool, her husband, right? I think that carries a lot of weight. So, all right. I think that's all I got in me for tonight, guys. I wanted to try to keep this to an hour. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about some more of this stuff. I think Sarah's going to join me because she had some stuff outlined that she wanted to talk about, but I couldn't fit it all in tonight because I wanted to make sure I get to bed at a decent hour. It's almost 11 p.m. already. So let me see if anybody else is live right now that I could redirect you to. Actually, there is one more thing. I came across this creator on, I think it was TikTok originally. I had never seen her on YouTube before, but I wanted to do something. If I can do this for people who are like close to a milestone, I think that'd be cool to do that sometimes. Where I see this creator Brianna, and it might be Brianna, and I really apologize if I'm saying it wrong because I'm new to her. Weldon is like very close to 1,000 subs here on YouTube, and I really like the way that she did this recent video that she put out a few hours ago, where she's like very very much trying to get inside the mind of both sides of the story, and she's not like heavily critical of anything here, but she's kind of putting in a way that rationalizes the way you might see a certain thing, like the weight shaming incident from both sides. If you're like a neutral member of a jury, kind of is how I saw it. I know that she didn't necessarily say she was trying to see it as a jury person, but I kind of saw it that way, where like a neutral member of a jury might hear both sides of the story and be critical of both sides of the story. I really liked this. I'm going to put a link to it in the comments here if you guys want to subscribe to her and give her a watch. I appreciated her thoughtful analysis here and the way that she was, I believe, fairly critical in trying to see both sides of the story on that. And I don't know, I liked her style. So if you guys want to give her a follow there, I think that'd be cool because it looks like she's about at 1,000 there too. So that might be cool to push her, over the edge so that she gets that little bump and encourage her to keep going. So I like her though. She's cool. Let me see if I can redirect you guys to anybody. Yeah, I don't really see anyone. I think Bocce might have. Does Bocce in for fucking? I keep telling everybody they need to turn on their redirect privileges, guys. Yeah, she doesn't have hers on. So, I'll send you over to one of my friends here who's covering a different case. If you just like want to hang out and watch something, his name's Hear Me Out. So it'll redirect you there. But I'll be back tomorrow night, like I said. And then the trial fundraiser is linked in the chat, guys, if you feel so inclined. Thanks everyone who's donated so far. I appreciate that. And I will be back with you soon. Thanks everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button for me. It helps me out a lot. I don't know what Omar said to troll me, but I'm sure he has been trolling me. I just saw him now. Hello, Omar. All right. That's all I got for right now. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.